Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. Doug Lamarice and Bill Landis. Thanks for joining us here. I have my sword out, Landis, and I just want to say
I was wondering because what people see, they couldn't see the sword in frame, but I can see a wider shot, and I saw that you had the sword in your hand.
Yeah,
I was a little worried.
So there's two things going on, and it's like we're so busy with all the great information that we're getting out of Ohio State spring practice that we just have not had a chance to step back and just talk really how hard the SEC can cram it. As more people, I think Brett McMurphy wrote a story today. They're just everybody's on board. There's nobody left.
Their own is turning on them.
So this sword is out for the SEC, but the SEC is already dead. So I mean, this is just like stabbing a dead body at this point, right? I would probably, I don't know if I'd waste my sword on the body of the SEC, the carcass. I probably would just kick it to see if there's like a last gasp in there. The sword is out because I'm wondering if Ryan Day is ready to slay the efficiency monster that is Ohio State football, to loose the explosion monster that can be Ohio State football. Or maybe he wants the efficiency monster and the explosion monster to live together as twins, and he doesn't have to choose one over the other. I think at times we're ready to slay. I at least am. Are you ready to slay the efficiency monster for Ohio State sometimes?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Because do we believe the efficiency monster must die for the explosion monster to live?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that necessarily. I think generally, no. I think the two ideas can coexist, and there have been times in the past where Ohio State has been both. But I think perhaps now that Ohio State is so far down the efficiency road that maybe efficiency must die for explosiveness terrain.
So we talked to Ryan Day on Monday. The Ohio State Buckeyes have shifted to like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday practice schedule now. We had been doing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So this is not around the shoe. We like to bring you around the shoe, where Bill and I invite two other members of the media, typically from the Ohio State media, to join us to discuss all topics college football and the Ohio State Buckeyes. We're going to do that Tuesday because we had Ryan Day today. So this is our reaction to Practice 9 show. Bill Rabinowitz and Dylan Davis scheduled to join us on Tuesday. Look for Around the Shoe then. But they practice 9. We talked to only Ryan Day afterward on Monday. And he was asked a question about explosiveness by Jeremy Birmingham that led to, and we wrote about this, it's for free for everybody over at our Substack. If you want to read it, if you want to double check, it's like I just put every bit of the quote in there because he just kept talking and talking and talking and talking about the explosiveness discussion around Ohio State, which just goes to show he's been thinking about it, right? Like this is on, are we explosive enough is on Ryan Day's mind. Do you agree?
Absolutely. It was on his mind last year. I think he let us in on that a couple of times last year. Yeah.
Yes. So he's thinking about it. So anyway, over at the Bill and Doug Substack, billanddougosu.substack.com. It's part of the notes that we put up. You can go read it for free. It's there for everybody. What Ryan Day talked about it enough on Monday that it led you to research some things. And we are going to dive into this more on our Wednesday show for Substack subscribers because you're going to do some more stat digging. You and I are going to do a draft of like the most explosive Ohio State offensive players that we have covered. But I think perhaps it's not about slaying efficiency in the name of explosion, but it might be about feeding explosion and not feeding efficiency so much. So maybe both beasts can exist. You don't have to kill one to loose the other, but maybe they've been feeding efficiency too much. And then they looked up and they're like, oh, the explosion monster is looking a little thin. I can see bones in there. And I do think that do you think over the past couple of years with the Ohio State offense, that accidentally happened? That it wasn't a thought process. You know what? If we have to give up some explosion to be more efficient, we're going to do that. It's that in the pursuit of being efficient, they just neglected explosiveness a little bit. And now Ryan Day is ready to right the ship on that.
I think that's part of it. the decision that we've talked about a lot to to play slower, to I think really just sort of be in tune with the number of plays that you were playing per game, which then led to a slower pace of play, just did kind of start to color everything for the offense. And that started when Chip Kelly was the coordinator 2 years ago and carried through last year, obviously. I think there are other things. I think there's some personnel stuff in there. Whether it was like a running back last year or some of the things that Ryan Day was also talking about on Monday about perimeter blocking. I think their perimeter blocking has been quite poor the last couple of years. And there was times earlier in Ryan Day's tenure, and especially during Urban Meyer's tenure, really that was really what was kind of feeding the beast, is like they were blocking the crap out of everything on the perimeter. So it's not just one thing, but I guess if you were to like pinpoint whatever, like an origin of this dip in explosiveness, it probably does start with the hard lean into efficiency.
And he really, you wrote very deftly at the Substack about yards after the catch and that discussion that had come up with Cortez Hankton, the new receivers coach. Mm-hmm. And Ryan Day has been obsessed in every way with the running backs doing more of the ball in their hands and breaking more tackles. Can just talking about that, I mean, and they're talking about it to us and to the fans because obviously they are emphasizing it in practice. Just emphasizing it in practice, is that do you think that alone can do something? That that it's not that they have to change their recruiting or, have guys put on more muscle and maybe not be as fast because they're trying. Although I guess if you're trying to be explosive, you're trying to be fast, you're trying to be strong to break tackles so that you can get free. I don't know that if they just emphasize it more, will it get better?
I think so, but I also think that they have tried to address it a little more with some personnel decisions too. But yeah, I think there's like an identity conversation about it. Ryan Day said last week, like, we haven't found their identity yet. And I think, one, that's hard to have 2 weeks in the practice. Two, even harder when you have 51 new players. So I get why they haven't found that yet. And maybe they won't quite get a handle on it by the time spring practice is over. And I think that's fine. But this to me feels like part of that, right? If you're just constantly drilling, in the case of the receivers, be a playmaker after you catch the ball, run through tackles, think about scoring every time the ball comes in your hands. Or if you're a running back, think about making guys miss at the second level more, be dangerous once you get past that 3 to 4 yard kind of barrier on a run play. Then I think the idea is it becomes second nature, right? And it's not so much you have to conjure these things via scheme, although you can, and I think they will. And it just becomes more about like, this is how we go about our business day to day. Like we're explosive because it's in our blood to be explosive. We're not like explosive because we had to draw up 6 plays to make it so, kind of thing. So yeah, I think talking about it does a lot.
I have another thing that I wonder if it helped mistakenly lead to this. I'm going to save it for Wednesday. I don't want us to. We just got back, so we talk to Ryan Day. That was a good news conference on Monday. We come home. What'd you eat for lunch?
Chicken salad sandwich.
Yeah. I just had some carrots with peanut butter on them. That's all I had in a little bowl. So I had to peel the carrots. Then I feed the peelings to my guinea pig. Then I get the peanut butter. So like, you gotta make
nice.
lunch
for 2. Yeah.
That's beautiful. My guinea pig. My guinea pig hears the carrots being peeled. He starts chirping because he knows what's up. He knows it's go time. So, but we haven't had time to completely research this, completely think about it. And I want us to have the most interesting, sophisticated, in-depth conversation about explosion on offense for Ohio State that we can. So I want to give us a little more time to get there. So is that okay? Because your numbers that you brought to the table that you looked up today already kind of blew me away. So we'll save it for Wednesday. Come find us on the Substack. We're not here to just be like, oh, we're saving the good stuff for the Substack. But sometimes we do that. But we also want these shows to be as good as they possibly can be. We just honestly need more time to dig into this a little bit. But we wanted to touch on it because you thought it really was a good question by Berm. You thought it was maybe the most interesting or among the most interesting things that Ryan Day said on Monday.
Yeah, and I thought it was a good way to I thought Berm couched it well too, because Ryan Day was asked about like pace of play and like really was harping on efficiency last week to the point where it got like, if you asked again, I'm not sure you were going to get a good answer about it, but there was more to get into there, and then like Berm sort of got to it. I think with the explosion conversation, and like that, the balance between the two is fascinating. So, it was good, and there is quite a lot to dig into, and more research we'll do before that Wednesday show as well.
Okay. Let's talk about what I still think maybe this is what I took away the most from Monday. And it is the confirmation from Ryan Day that left tackle Austin Siereveld and right tackle Phillip Daniels both had minor medical procedures that are going to keep them out for the rest of spring football. He said they'll be back by the summer. It's all good. I think the effect on Austin Siereveld and Phillip Daniels missing the last couple weeks of practice in the spring, like that side of it, is almost zero. It's negligible. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about what it means. And what it means is that Ian Moore at left tackle and Carter Lowe at right tackle are going to run with the ones for the rest of spring. We saw that on Saturday when we were there for the open practice. And to me, I sort of thought it before the spring started. And to me, this opens a door and creates an opportunity for this to only be even more true. That Ian Moore is the piece of the puzzle that if you slide him in the right way, everything else falls into place. On the offensive line, maybe on the whole offense, maybe on the whole team. And we're going to get ready for the spring game on April 18th. We'll talk about it on Around the Shoe. We'll talk about it and write about it on the Substack. I'm sure we'll do a bunch of stuff like drafting the most interesting guys to watch in the spring game, right? The guys who, whatever. And I'm just going to, everything we do from a roster standpoint between now and August, most important, most interesting, highest ceiling, lowest floor, greatest gap, like impact, whatever. I think I might pick Ian Moore first every single time. And what has happened is it felt like, okay, well, like Ian Moore was the backup left tackle because Austin Siereveld was the first team left tackle. And now Ian Moore gets to be the first team left tackle for 2 weeks of spring, and it might change everything.
I think it probably will change everything. I feel, has this not happened in the past where maybe it happened with Austin Siereveld last year? It was like, well, someone's got to play tackle. Let's just see what this looks like. And then you're like, oh, this looks good. Okay. And I feel like that maybe that happens a lot on the offensive line. And Ryan Day was kind of referencing some points in the past where they have had to move guys around and there was a long-term benefit from that. So that's like a separate conversation. That's like whatever. If Ian Moore, for whatever reason, doesn't win a starting job, at least he's got this experience he can tap into should you need him at some point in the season. But I don't think that's really what this is. That might even be more of like a Carter Lowe conversation. For Ian Moore, it's like Ian Moore has 2 weeks to like lock down left tackle.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm a little conflicted because I thought he was really good last year when he had to play, but then the sort of the way they handled him, especially after the Purdue game, was not a reflection of like the coaching staff feeling the same way. And I know you had some conversations about like, well, it was good, but not great. He's not quite ready, but he's close. But then nothing really came of that. So that puts me in a position where I want to like temper my expectations a little bit, but maybe that's the wrong read because he's older and it's a different time and maybe that's not even applicable now. But I really do think he's got a chance to kind of crystallize this whole offensive line thing. The other piece of this is Josh Padilla's injury, because he would very much be in the mix to be starting right now too if he was not out for the spring. So maybe things can't quite crystallize coming out of spring, but I think it could be close. And this is like it's not by design, I don't think, but it could be a bit of a happy accident. I think that Ian Moore gets to play starting left tackle for 2.5 weeks.
I always want things to be by design, and sometimes it still dumbfounds me in sports how often they aren't by design.
Yeah.
And I mean, the number one thing always for me was Hugh Jackson, when he was the Browns coach, like wouldn't start Baker Mayfield as a rookie. And he was like, we're going to play Tyrod Taylor. And it was like Tyrod Taylor got hurt and they put Baker Mayfield in, like, I think it might've been week 2, like whatever. late in the first quarter, week 2. It was like, yeah. Why did something have to happen for you to do the obvious thing? And so I am still not 100% sure why they didn't just make Ian Moore the starting left tackle from the first day of spring, because they know Austin Siereveld can do it. Play Austin Siereveld at right guard, and then if Ian Moore can't do it, then you can slide Austin Siereveld back to left tackle. But that's not at all what they did. And so it was like, okay, but now they are being forced to do that, and it might be the thing that we've already said. And I just what? We haven't talked to Tyler Bowen, the offensive line coach, yet, right? We're going to talk to him next week. Is that right? Next week?
I think next week, yeah.
What do you think would have held them back from doing that? That if they wind up, you're already on the record, you think this is what's going to be the case for Ball State, September 5th, Ian Moore at left tackle, Austin Siereveld at right guard, correct? That's your official. Philly Billy says so.
That's right. Yeah.
Why do you think, I guess the two things, why do you think they didn't do it from the beginning of spring practice? And what do you think Tyler Bowen would say about why they didn't do it?
I don't know why. Yeah. I think they maybe would have gotten to it. Cause I asked about offensive line on the first day of spring, and Ryan Day talked a lot about moving guys around and said that Ian Moore can play guard and tackle. So I sort of took that to believe they'll keep moving these pieces around a little bit. And I just always felt eventually they would land on the configuration that has Ian Moore at tackle and Austin Siereveld or Phillip Daniels at guard. But it seems like they're pretty dead set on Phillip Daniels playing tackle, which is fine. So, but why they didn't just do that from day one, I don't know. Because we get to watch practice and we would have made a mountain out of it. Maybe if they did, I think sometimes they make decisions based on that kind of stuff. Maybe something about Ian or Austin Siereveld being a guy who's sort of earned his keep and he gets to start out where he played well last year, and we'll worry about moving guys around as we get further into it. I'm not entirely sure. There's not a super obvious reason to me why they wouldn't have just done it from the jump.
They are starting to build up a history of the guy who is the starting left tackle on the first day of spring practice is not going to be the starting left tackle by the time the season starts, right?
Yeah, right.
So 2023, right? It was Josh Fryer, and then they were like, this is not really it, and they went and got Josh Simmons in the spring portal, and the spring portal no longer exists. Last year, we thought it was going to be Ethan Onyanwa coming in from Rice. It was like, nope, that's not it. I guess we're going to see if Austin Siereveld can play tackle. It's like, yep, Austin Siereveld can play tackle. This is, and again, one of my, I think, having done this for 2 decades, one of the most interesting things about Ohio State football is how often they back into their quarterback solutions, that you make such a big deal about quarterback recruiting and identifying, and they're going all over the country to pick out the guy they want. And then it's like, oh yeah, actually it wound up being this guy. And it's just the numerous examples of what they thought and then what actually happened. That includes Julian Sand. Right? They didn't get Julian Sand. They lost that recruiting battle. And it's like, oh, no, yeah, but he's a 2-year starter. Ohio State. And they're getting there at left tackle, man. And the thing that I think that I've had to come to realize is I don't know that it's a criticism. I don't know that it's a thing to be on alert for. It maybe is just the way sports works more often than we think. That even at the highest possible level, where you are picking instead of recruiting, where you have your choice of the very best players in the country, it's like, yeah, well, it didn't work out as we thought, but thank goodness it turned out okay. And so it's like, well, that Ian Moore, took the Siereveld injury, and now Ian Moore's like a first-team All Big Ten left tackle, and that's just how that's the way the world works, man.
Yeah, that's why they don't spend any money on 5-star high school offensive tackles, because they know that eventually they'll find the guy in the building who should be playing left tackle.
Yeah. There's just a guy. I'm like, let's go, kind of, right? That now that we're at this point, I'm not sure I'm taking my binoculars off Ian Moore when he's on the field in the spring game. I think he's getting 24/7 offensive. Wait. Is that okay with you? I'm sorry.
I like where this is going. We were at practice on Saturday, and you were watching offensive line while I watched 7-on-7s, and then we get to Ryan Day on Monday, and you're asking about offensive line, and now you just want to watch the O-line at the spring game. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
Soon enough, this will be an offensive line only podcast, and I can't.
I did. So I thought there was like some good. I think there was some good offensive line conversation. You're planning to write about the continuity of the offensive line. It's something you've been researching. You asked Ryan Day about it on Monday as well. But like, that's the interesting part of this, that it snaps together the continuity. That if Moore's they're going to have one new guy, that it's going to be Hinsman, Montgomery, Daniels, and Siereveld for the 5 starters back in some arrangement. And then it's just but the 5th guy kind of snaps it into place. But what if it does snap into place? Like what's the ceiling for this O-line if it comes together the right way?
Pretty high, I think. Like, you would be asking a guy who's not played a ton to be your starting left tackle and go do it on the road against Texas in week 2. So I don't want to just assume that Ian Moore is going to, have an A for that game. So there might be a little bit of early growing pains, but I do think if you just look at the pieces that are available to them, what you're really talking about is one of Ian Moore, Josh Padilla, or Gabe Van Sickle slotting into the 5th spot, since the other 4 are taken up by the 4 returning starters. Which sort of like configuration of those 3 guys in the various positions they can play do you like the most? I think most people will probably say put Ian Moore at tackle, and maybe they would say put him at right instead of left, but I think if you're putting Ian Moore at left tackle, he's supposed to be a tackle. You have a Phillip Daniels at right tackle. He's probably supposed to be a tackle. And then you have Luke Montgomery at guard, who's supposed to be a guard. And you have Carson Hinsman at center, who's supposed to be a center. And then you have Austin Siereveld, a guard, who's like finally going to play guard, the position he's going to play in the NFL. It comes together quite nicely. I think that's a puzzle that I would certainly want to lean on if I were Ohio State.
It's not a great comparison, but I keep thinking about Taylor Decker taking over at left tackle in year 3. Now, Taylor Decker in year 2 was the starting right tackle in 2013. And then when he moved to left tackle in 2014, he was like the only starter back because Corey Lindsley and Jack Mewhort and Andrew Norwell and all these other veteran guys were gone. So like all those circumstances are very different. Ian Moore is part of the veteran offensive line. He did not start in year 2, but for a highly, not a 5-star, but a highly rated guy that you kind of always thought was going to be a left tackle to sort of snap into place. Jamarco Jones did that. Jamarco Jones sort of like bided his time. He was a big time get. These are all Midwestern guys. Taylor Decker, Ian Moore, Jamarco Jones. It's the kind of guy that you can find in this part of the country and develop. Jamarco Jones was a big time recruit, and then he snapped into place as a starting left tackle in years 3 and 4, right? And so like I keep using that word because it's like it's not the Legos, but like the stuff that's like the Legos. Maybe it's Magnetiles, right?
Magnetiles, yeah,
Magnetiles, right?
Or like Tetris, a little bit of Tetris,
yeah,
maybe. Although when they all fit together, they disappear. So maybe that's bad.
That's true. It just like it just makes so much sense for me. It's like, well, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? I don't know what you're gonna do, but the 3rd-year guy who has been anticipated to be a left tackle from the minute you started recruiting him, he snaps into place in his 3rd year on campus as a starting left tackle, and then do whatever else. Mm-hmm. And so, like I'm overly excited about this because it's maybe being forced upon them, but I think it's going to snap into place, and that's it. And then Ian Moore is going to start the next 2 years at left tackle, and we're good to go.
Yep, I kind of feel the same way. And it's sort of like bolstered by the fact that he played well last year. Like when they put him in there. He started against Purdue, and I know Purdue's not great, but he played well in that game. And then when no one could block Miami, they put Ian Moore in there, and he could block Miami a little bit. It's great.
Yeah. It's like, why did Ohio State's offense function in the second half against Miami and it didn't in the first half? It's like, well, maybe the number one reason is because Ian Moore came in.
Yeah. I mean, Austin Siereveld got hurt, obviously. That's why Ian Moore had to come in.
Couldn't move. It's not Austin Sierveld's fault. But
Right. And that wasn't the most obvious stress point prior to Austin Siereveld getting hurt. But Wasn't like Ian Moore went in there and was like, well, he can't block either Akeem Mesidor or Ruben Bain, so I guess we'll just throw screens all game. So, I think he's ready. I like I said, I thought he was kind of ready last year. And I think he's definitely ready going into year 3.
Yeah. I want to talk about special teams a little bit. What else did you want to talk about from what Ryan Day had to say? He did say some nice stuff about Earl Little, which is just interesting to hear the continued progression of like super veteran safety hanging out in the back end and kind of looking like a veteran.
Well, I actually thought so. That was a question that was asked by Steve Hellwagon, I believe, about who are a couple of guys that have stood out to you on both sides of the ball. And he was talking about Earl Little on defense. On offense, he talked about the tight ends.
That did not seem to match up with
anything we've heard or seen. Yeah.
He basically was like Hunter Welcing and Mason Williams. You should see these guys catch the ball. It was like, what? Yeah. But okay. It's a head coach.
Good, productive on the catch, more so than we've maybe been. They just had a tight end catch like 40 passes, Max Clare. And he's talking about like, cool, I haven't seen tight ends catch the ball like this in a long time. It's like, okay, I don't know what to do with that. Maybe you're just being nice to a position group that hasn't been talked about a lot. But like for his mind, obviously he said what he's had to say, I think, about the running back position. So like he wasn't gonna say like running back's been great, but he could have said O-line, running back, or quarterback, and he said tight end. So I thought that was not on my bingo card, that's for sure.
No. It would be funny. I think we could do it. Maybe we'll do it for our Substackers. Make an actual bingo card for Ryan Day Tuesdays in the fall. Right? And then so it's all the same. Like, but if we come up with different ones and then we distribute the bingo cards differently, right? And then this is yours because it's I think we actually.
We can do Ryan Day press conference bingo for sure.
We could definitely do that. Can you write that on the sheet? Yeah. Ryan Day press conference bingo, because it would be a way to like just the coach has some things that he says, that are kind of like frequent refrains from him, but also then we can make fun of us as the media and the ridiculous things that we ask about. Yeah. He talked about special teams. We're going to talk to Robbie Disher, who was hired from Illinois to be the special teams coach on Wednesday. And so it was like not a surprise. It was a good idea. Stephen Means asked sort of like, hey, let's get the head coach on special teams before we talk to Robbie Disher on Wednesday. And so there's two things. One is, he said the punter needs better hang time and needs to kick it farther. And I just think that's reassuring to the fans, right?
Yes, but he's never really said that about Joe McGuire before. Whenever he's been asked about Joe McGuire, he always talks about the thing that Joe McGuire does well, which is get the ball off his foot quickly.
Right.
No blocks. If you want to know anything about, if you want to know about the importance of that, go watch Miami's punter eat a sandwich before he punted the ball against Indiana in the national title game. So like that matters. But in my mind, I was always saying like, well, yeah, but he can't kick the ball far, and like both things have to matter, right? So, I guess like was Joe McGuire doing some extra leg presses in the winter workouts? I don't know. I'd like to hear some more about that, or maybe there's something, some special teams voodoo that Rob Disher has that can make his punter get a little more hang time and a little more distance on it, because they're short there. They have been short there the last couple of years. They've not really been great at flipping the field. So for Ryan Day, I think to like finally acknowledge that was good, but also like I don't. It's not like they went out in the portal and tried to address it either. So it's like we think he needs to do these things better, but then like he has to do these things better because there's no other option.
Right. So Joe McGuire the last 2 years has averaged 42.2 yards per punt, and it's hard to like, for instance, Joe McGuire statistically never qualifies for anything because Ohio State doesn't punt enough. So if you look like, and I don't know if the NCAA or needs to change the requirements. If you look last year, I tried to sort on CFBstats.com, like all Big Ten punters who qualify. There's only like 5. Like nobody qualifies for what you're supposed to do anymore. So it's like lower the threshold because teams aren't punting enough. And part of it, actually, It's just everyone's going for it on fourth down every more, right? Like all those times when punters were punting from the 48-yard line, it's like on 4th and 3. Now a bunch of coaches are going for it. So the number of punts is down. So they need to change the threshold. But even by the guys who qualified, I think there were 45 punters last year in college football who averaged at least 43 yards per punt. And like the good ones averaged like 46, 47, 48. And that doesn't mean you kick it 48 yards every time. It means you're dropping some 60-yarders in there when it really matters. And that's the one thing that Ohio State has not had lately. Of, like you said, flip the field. They'll get into a battle of a 3-and-out versus a 3-and-out and lose 15 yards of field position.
Yeah, right.
Because like our guy punted at 38 and their guy punted at 59. And it's like, okay, it was 2 3-and-outs. We lost 21 yards on that exchange. And like that's not an unheard of thing with Ohio State. Like that needs to stop.
Yeah, I wonder too if Ohio State sometimes, not only do they not punt a lot, but they're not often punting from deep in their own territory because they're usually good for like at least a first down when they get the ball. So I understand that maybe that impacts the averages some, but like there have been plenty of times over the last couple of years where have been in a position to like punt it from whatever their own 22-yard line and try to flip the field, and they can't do it because they don't have a punter who's capable of getting it that far.
And then the other thing is he did talk about Connor Hawkins, talked about Dalton Riggs, the long snapper from UCF, and he talked about Connor Hawkins, the transfer kicker from Baylor, and he said the word clutch. He said he's clutch, and like that's the only word that matters. And it's just one of those of it's like you and I did not. A lot of people made a big deal about Connor Hawkins making a kick in practice in front of people.
Right.
I don't give two squats about that. I just don't want to talk about. I only want to talk about kicking field goals for Ohio State in like the 8 game, whatever. They're going to play a bunch of big games this year.
The 5 times a year it matters. Yeah.
And otherwise, like it's not even worth having a conversation. But I thought Ryan Day, him saying Connor Hawkins has been clutch and he's been in clutch situations, to me is saying that same thing, which is, he was saying like, we're trying to replicate situations in practice. That's what everybody does. But like practice doesn't matter. Ball State doesn't matter. Frankly, Illinois doesn't matter. It's like, let's see what happens against Texas and Oregon and Indiana and Michigan and the Big Ten championship game and the playoff. And the rest of the time, I don't want to hear anyone talking about the kicker. So I think and that's the same with, I think that's us. We are reflecting what we hear from fans. And I think that's Ryan Day too. I don't care if you're 5 for 5 against Ball State, because it doesn't matter. So the only thing you can go on is they went and got a guy who in a power conference has made important kicks in important games before. And that was the only thing that mattered. And that's the only thing that's going to matter now. But I like the word clutch.
I do like the word clutch. Yeah, like Connor Hawkins last year was 43rd in the country in field goal conversion percentage at 81.8%, which is great. But there were guys who were in the 90s. But he made 2 game winners, and that's all I care for. Be 80% all you want. Just make sure you're 100% when the difference between you making or missing is winning and losing the game. And I think that's why they brought him in here, because he has shown an ability to make those kicks when asked.
Yeah, I think that's right. North Carolina hired Mike Malone.
I guess. Yeah.
Good.
They didn't want to wait out Billy Donovan, I guess.
Good. So I was going to play this game of how far down the list would you have to go before Jake Diebler would have been a candidate. So it's like Jake Diebler's not a candidate for the North Carolina job, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say that like TJ Otzelberger as the Iowa State coach had taken the North Carolina job. Would Jake Diebler have been a candidate for the Iowa State job? The answer is no, right? Yeah. But let's say the Indiana State coach had taken the Iowa State job. Would Jake Diebler have been a candidate for the Indiana State job? And it's like, how many layers removed from being a candidate for the North Carolina job is Ohio State's current head coach? Would he be a candidate to replace the guy who replaced the guy who replaced the guy who went to North Carolina? And the answer is like, maybe, but maybe not. So anyway, we don't have to play that game anymore. I was just being mean. Sorry.
Mike Malone was unemployed, so there are no dominoes.
Yeah.
Or he was an assistant maybe, but
I understand the calendars in college sports are screwed up, but I don't understand why any major program would allow the calendar to rush a hire. I'd rather suck for a year. It's like, oh, it's going to screw up the transfer portal. Fine. Then just do a bad job in the transfer portal in year one of that coach as he establishes his culture, and then hope that he's good for the next 20 years. To be like, well, we had to get in ahead of the transfer portal. It's like, I don't know why major programs aren't willing to like take a loss on timing to get the absolute right guy and then explain that to their fans. And it's like, okay, but like, I'm sorry we had trouble building the roster, but we got Dusty May, but we had to wait until he won the national championship and got done with the parade. I don't know. It just is odd to me when it feels like teams, but it happens in both sports when they wind up with the guy that is not the guy they want because the guy they want is still coaching in the playoff. And then I'm just like, just wait then. Why don't you wait?
It's weird, especially for basketball too, because the basketball portal doesn't open until Tuesday. Like they actually do it right. You can't transfer until the season's over. Unlike football. And the portal's open until I think like April 21st. So would have been plenty of time for any current sitting college coach to take your job and build his roster. And the Chicago Bulls aren't making the playoffs and their season's over on April 12th. Would have been plenty of time to hire Billy Donovan and let him build his roster. Maybe not under ideal circumstances, but like he'd at least have a roster. It's not like you have to hire an NBA coach after the portal closes and there's nobody available. So it seems like maybe they got rushed into making a hire perhaps that they did not want to make. So
I don't know.
Good luck to the Heels.
I don't think there's no cost too high to pay for getting it right.
I agree.
So I'm confused by the discussion around it sometimes. All right. Well, we can end it there. We had a lovely conversation with Ryan Day.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
We like the big Jeremiah Smith overturn of the fourth down catch.
Oh yeah. Ryan Day doesn't have to run gassers, which I respect.
But here's the thing. So what I actually thought there was a tiny little nugget of something in that exchange.
Yeah. Because he's not the head coach of the offense.
God. So the conversation is they did a do or die fourth down play when everybody was at the open practice on Saturday. They threw a touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith. As a result, the defense had to run gassers. But we saw it in the moment, and everybody saw it on the replay, that Jeremiah Smith actually stepped out of the back of the end zone before he caught it, then came back in, was the first person to touch it. In a real game, it would have been disallowed as a touchdown. So Adam King, the great Adam King, asked about it on Monday. And Ryan Day gave this funny answer of trying to be really serious about we went to the review. We weren't even sure he was in charge of the review, but they overturned it. So the offense had to run because it wasn't a touchdown. And then everybody was joking around, and Stephen Means joking around. It's good stuff to do. It's hey, so did you have to run? Because the offense had to run. And he was like, no, I didn't run.
Mm-hmm.
And there is actually it's,
yeah.
If we were writing a 10,000 word story about the transformation of Ryan Day from offensive play caller to full head coach, you could write an 800 word lead about that. And it's no, he didn't say it, but it's no, I didn't run because I'm not offense and I'm not defense. I'm the head effing coach. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And there might have been a time at earlier times in his career, maybe not that long ago, where he would have run or his instinct would have been to run or whatever, because even while he was the head coach, he was more of an offensive guy. And those days are gone.
That's why he hired Chip Kelly, because he had to run a gasser in 2023 and thought, this is ridiculous. I'm the head coach of Ohio State. I need to bring somebody in to run these
sports.
Yes,
for real. Yeah. I mean, that would be, of all the things, I'm not sure Arthur Smith or Chip Kelly are the guys you want to hire to run gassers. Hartline probably was good at running gassers, right? So he might need to keep that in mind. But
Art Smith is a former offensive lineman. He's an athlete, all right? He can run.
Okay, Chip.
Yeah, Chip, maybe not. Chip's 60.
Chip is 60. That's true. Chip's not running at Northwestern, I'll tell you that. So anyway, it was like a funny little thing, but there's always there's truth in the truth in the humor. All right, we'll get out of here. Thanks to you guys. for being here as always. We'll see you over on the Substack, BillandDougOSU.substack.com. We got a bunch of stories coming up this week that we think you'll find interesting. We'll have the big Wednesday show. We did our big react. You saw a clip of it on this feed on YouTube, but we did our big react to the Saturday practice over on the Substack live with our folks over there. So like, if you were like, hey, I haven't really heard these guys really dig into what they saw at practice today. We did 100 minutes on it, but we did it on Substack. So again, you know, all of this is important to us, but there's always more over there. BillandDougOSU.substack.com. We'll talk to you soon around the shoe on Tuesday. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was the Bill and Doug Show.